Chappell Roan is clapping back at the music executive who called her out for her ignorance about the music industry. In case you forgot, during her acceptance speech at the Grammys, she called for record labels to offer their artists free health care and a livable wage, referring to these artists as employees, which is foreign language to seasoned professionals in her industry. But now, after Jeff Raban published this guest column for The Hollywood Reporter, throwing her under the bus for not informing herself on the details of how these deals work, Chappell Roan has clapped back at him on her Instagram story and essentially sicked her whole fan base on this guy. He's been working in the industry for decades at this point. He is now retired. Since 1992. He's now retired, and he added his 2 cents to this conversation really just for the fun of it. And it backfired on him pretty badly. So Chappell Roan posted to her story, "Wanna match me a $25K to donate to struggling dropped artists?" She then gave her publicist's Instagram handle in the post and said, "Wanna talk? We'll keep everyone updated on the much-awaited response, and I will show receipts of the donations. Mr. Raban, I love how in the article you said, put your money where your mouth is. Genius! Let's link and build together and see if you can do the same."
Okay, I just want to point out that he mansplained and it worked, because in the article he put there's a whole section of less talking, more doing, where he says, to champion struggling artists, leading by example is the only way. Actions speak louder than the viral Grammy moments, and there are real ways to make a difference. He says, start a foundation that helps independent artists with healthcare and fair compensation, and demand your fellow Grammy winners match your funding. Well, he was actually probably smarter than you, because asking the Grammy artists would probably do more good, because you'll get a farther reach, even though it's arguable that, you know, plenty of those music executives are doing very, very well. Like, a lot of people were mistaking this guy for like a journalist and being like, why would you ask a journalist to put $25K towards this thing when they probably can't afford it? This guy's, if I had to guess, given the length of his career and the types of artists that he's worked with, the fact that he was at the, you know, he was an executive, that he's probably doing pretty well. But if you really wanted this to reach out, you would give it to your other virtue signaling artists and try to get them to match it.
Right. In a series of follow-up posts, Chappell Roan also took this opportunity to give a shout out to young struggling artists who she enjoys. They included Hemlock Springs, Sarah Kinsley, Devin Again, and Baby Storm.
I'm telling you, it's a hipster moment. She wants to brag. She's like, look at these unique artists. You've probably never heard of them.
Look at how niche my music taste is compared to yours.
She hasn't gotten out of the 2010s.
And I know I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about this with Phil, but it is the case that Chappell Roan has some hard feelings from the way that she came up in the music industry. She's 26, but she's been at it for over a decade now. And she got her first record deal when she was 16 with Atlantic Records. And they actually ended up dropping her. And this was her sob story that she offered to everyone at the Grammys, that she had no work experience after they dropped her. So she was totally financially adrift and had no idea what to do. She didn't have health care.
They really
all of these
do.
Benefits.
There is this weird sense of like proud helplessness. Like, there's no determination anymore to make it on your own. There's only determination to... It kind of ties part and parcel with the way that they love establishment relevance. Like, they only consider it important if it's given relevance by mainstream press. They don't understand that there's different types of relevance and there's different ways that things can matter. They don't trust it unless it comes from a trusted source. And in this case, they don't understand that they can make it on their own. They don't need to be connected to a major label for healthcare. They can go buy their own healthcare. But it's like you were saying earlier, you said that somebody tied this back to mansplaining, and it was a woman saying that they contend
Variety
that
article.
Yes.
They say the situation is not only a classic art versus commerce standoff, it also has many hallmarks of a classic male-female difference in perspective. A woman shouting, "This is wrong!" while a man splains, hold on a minute, little lady, let me tell you how things really work.
I mean, that is just culture war bullshit to make it a gendered issue. There are plenty of male artists that are probably lame enough to not understand that learned helplessness is a thing. But there is a difference between an idealistic perspective of the world, which often has nothing to do with women and everything to do with the fact that they're artists who have a utopian, idealistic view of the world that often runs that's incongruous to the way things actually are, which is where a lot of their ideas for music come from. Whereas an executive takes a more pragmatic and business-minded approach to these things, and that has nothing to do with men or women. You go look at any of these companies, there are plenty of women in executive roles now that understand that money is the name of the game and would probably be offended by the learned helplessness that all of you are employing here by not understanding that, look, I've got some money. Maybe I'll go get my own health insurance. And encouraging other artists to do the same is stupid.
So that their record labels don't have control over them.
Yeah.
As Phil was pointing out yesterday, record labels having more control over your life and your well-being is not a good thing for artists. And I didn't even know this, but Variety also pointed out something that Chappell Roan probably doesn't know, which is that many artists signed to major record labels are, in fact, eligible for healthcare through their deals with an arrangement they have with SAG-AFTRA. And that's been the case since the 50s. She doesn't know that. I guess maybe she didn't have the wherewithal to know these things when she signed a deal as a minor. And I don't blame her for that. But
what if the record labels were like, look, how about this? We will give you health insurance, but we get a cut of every brand deal that you sign outside of our record label. You want to sell makeup? You want to sell your Kabuki Ghoul makeup, right? That's from a movie, Kabuki Ghoul. You want to sell your makeup as a brand? Sure, we get a cut of it, but you get health insurance. No, they're not. Again, this is a form of they're proud of feeling like they need to be taken care of. It's weird as hell.
Right. And I also saw that Halsey dropped into this conversation to defend Chappell Roan against this journalist/music executive. She posted on her Instagram story, @HollywoodReporter, I hope you're embarrassed of the absolute personal attack that you ran and disguised as critical journalism. This is so far beneath the standard you should uphold as a publication.
Can I ask a question? What would be, what in Halsey's mind would be a fair critique?
It's funny that she's saying it's a personal attack when Jeffrey Raban was reiterating over and over that he thinks Chappell Roan is talented. He thinks that her gumption is admirable, but that she's just not as informed as she should be on the topic at hand. It was the most even-handed criticism I had seen ever.
Yeah,
it was not personal at all. But here she continued, Jeff Raban's ranting, seething tantrum is loaded
It has
with
paragraphs. It's not ranting.
No.
It's well organized.
Very
and
well thought
thoughtful.
out.
It's got conversation headers on everything. Are you kidding me?
Is loaded with assumptions and accusations that generalize the experience of every artist to that of the most successful. Our industry is comprised of thousands of voices. The elite at the very top of the class are not the example of a monolithic experience for all artists. Advances, seldomly awarded by the way they used to be, are for affording survival because your commitment to making art precludes you from working a day job. It's a game of investment, but the investment is towards producing the materials that is producing that product needs access to things like healthcare. Shocking, I know. If you want to profit off of someone else's art, that artist should have the basic living means to feel safe enough to create that art. An artist like Chappell, who has worked for over a decade, is not an instant industry insider, and to compare the payoff of her actions to those of an industry titan with the power and financial leverage like Taylor Swift, when Chappell hasn't even spun the block enough times to see the residuals of her long-earned but sudden success, is irresponsible for someone with your experience in this industry. Shame on you, bootlicking behavior. They're saying he's bootlicking the record labels.
I thought art wasn't created out of safety. I thought art was created out of the opposite. Like a lot of times the best art is created out of fear or anxiety or things like that. So, I mean, you're kind of pigeonholing them into one area in which can make you successful. I think the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous.
Her framing record label advances as a safety net for artists rather than what it is alone is either just as ignorant or it's downright dishonest. The loan that they're giving you is something they intend to earn back by many times over by the sales of your music. The advance is so that you can make the music for them to sell and make more money off of than they gave to you to make it. So
it would be like if book writers were like, I want healthcare while I'm writing my next book for my publisher.
And you know, a lot of this is like artists who temperamentally don't understand numbers and math and money and stuff, which I get. But this is why there are so many examples of artists who take these advances and then blow all of the money on sports cars and designer and mansions with money that isn't really theirs, basically. Yes. And then they end up in debt to these record labels, and people see that situation and say, oh, the poor artist was taken advantage of. And I guess in a certain sense, they walked into something they didn't really understand. They didn't understand the responsibility that came with it. But at that point, you're supposed to have a lawyer inform you, a financial advisor inform you of these things. It's not, I don't know. The music industry is not a daycare for adults.
And let's not kid ourselves. There's absolutely predatory practices within the music industry. And a lot of these record labels sign absolutely lopsided deals with these artists. Why would you want to give them another leverage of control over you by putting them in control of your health care as well?
Especially your mental health care.
Which they care a lot about because it's Hollywood and in the music industry, so they love talking about mental health.
And this will come up later, but just think about the way that they're milking this drama between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. It's two artists on the same record label that are in a public feud that leads to the highest streamed song of the year. They love that shit. They don't care about your mental health.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.